First of all, what are these walkouts going to look like? What should we expect from these? And Imani, let's start with you.
Okay, so at Renaissance, our walkout is gonna be in front of the school. It'll be on Outer Drive, and basically, it's gonna start with us protesting and chanting with signs and things like that. Then we're gonna have some victims of gun violence talk. We're gonna have somebody from Ceasefire in Detroit talk about gun violence in Detroit, and then I'm just gonna talk about the importance of recognizing like Black voice in this fight, and that like we definitely have things to contribute to the fight against gun violence as well, and just standing in solidarity with the schools around Detroit, around Michigan, and around the country.
Alondra, does that sound about what's planned over at Western International?
Yeah, just that we're going to have a balloon release. We're going to release 17 orange balloons because orange symbolizes gun violence awareness. And ours is going to be in trilingual. It's going to be English, Spanish, and Arabic.
Evelyn, you're at Grosse Pointe South. When it comes to what you have planned, is it along the same lines as the schools that we're talking about here in Detroit?
Similar, yeah. We are trying to make it more about just honoring the victims and standing in solidarity with Parkland. So we'll have student speakers, and we have choir students singing the national anthem. And then we're going to have a moment of silence for the lives lost at Stoneman Douglas. So, yeah, pretty similar.
If you could each talk a little bit about how you got involved in this, what inspired you to organize these in the first place?
Actually, Alondra, we're friends outside of this anyways, and so I saw that she was planning something at Western. I thought it would be amazing to be able to stand in solidarity with her because we both do activism in a lot of different ways, and so I thought that it would be cool for her to know that, like, we're looking at her and that we stand with her, especially in what's happening. I think it's important to recognize that Parkland is a tragedy and that we see it every day in Detroit. And so it's like, this is something that we're fighting for. And now that it's a bigger issue, more people are watching because of what's happening. I think it's a good time to say like, hey, in Detroit, we really need this, like for real, for real.
Alondra, it sounds like you're sort of a spark that lights the flame here, right? I mean, so what made you think that this is something that you wanted to spend your time doing?
So I organize with Women's March Youth. I represent Detroit. So they asked me if that was something I would like to bring to Detroit. And I said, yeah, like we really need to talk about gun violence in the city because that's just something we normalized over the last couple of years. So that's when I really wanted to get all the schools involved to like bring awareness to the community that this is an issue and it's getting into schools and that's really dangerous.
Evie, did you have a similar experience? I mean, when you saw what happened at Parkland, I guess what was the path between that and now for you?
I think after the shooting, it was sort of a moment of realization that this isn't going to be just another school shooting, that after a week the media is going to drop it, you know. And once I realized that it was our peers and it was high school students similar to us, and this could have easily happened at a high school near us or our own high school, that was when it hit me where I was like, okay, you know, this is our moment to make change. This is our moment to stand up and say what we believe in because we are the next generation. And I think that as students, student leaders, we decided it's our time and we can't sit back anymore and let this happen.
Sure. And what about the students at Parkland? You know, that was maybe one of the biggest differences that I noticed with this school shooting is that it was the students themselves that took front and center stage. I mean, was that an inspiration for you guys? Do you think that that's sort of what led you to think that it was your role to do this instead of the adults in your community?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just think it was really inspiring to kind of see them stand up to people like Marco Rubio or people that feel like so far from myself. Because sometimes I know that like student voice matters, young people's, our voices matter, but also people say it but don't really like act on it. So to see them in that platform, like really like standing up to them and not like holding back, it really did inspire me to say like I can do it too at my school.
Imani, I know that your family is, involved in lots of activism and looking for social justice here in Detroit. But I'm curious, any pushback or any questions from the adults in your life, either parents or teachers or anything like that on this? Any concerns about walking out of class in protest?
My dad was like very concerned because he thought like I was like pushing for like gun control and he thought it was all around gun control and he's like, what if like anti-protesters or all that come to your protest, like what about that, like this is really dangerous. But then I told them, I was like, okay, but like we normalize gun violence so much. And like in order to be a leader, like you have to go out of your way to like push for a movement. So that's what I want to do. Like activism work, like it is dangerous, but like you're never going to be hurt if you don't go out of your way.
So now he's cool with it?
I mean, he's not cool. Like he's going to the walkout. Like he got a T-shirt,
Okay,
but
all right,
he's like,
all right.
I'm just really scared for you.
He's probably going just to make sure things are cool, are safe for you, right? Like
Yeah.
he's there just kind of watching your back, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm curious. And what about at Grosse Pointe South? How have the faculty especially reacted to this?
I think the faculty have actually been pretty supportive of it. We had to run it by administration just for safety reasons. We didn't want counter protests or anything going wrong. So once administration got involved, the teachers got the okay that if they chose to walk out, they could also do that. I don't think the teachers are the problem, but there's our community, Grosse Pointe, is pretty overall conservative, and there were a lot of parents who were emailing the school board and very, very vocal about their pushback on this event. But we're trying to make it a nonpartisan walkout and vigil to honor the lives lost. So I don't know how you can disagree with that.
Yeah. So when you hear people, and this has been something that's cropped up in the media a lot since Parkland, sort of pushback from adults saying kids in this, kids doing exactly what you guys are doing are being used by gun control advocates. Basically, this idea that you're unwitting pawns in sort of a effort to, take away Second Amendment rights. I'm curious what you think when you hear that this is just, this is Democrats or this is gun control advocates using kids for their political agenda.
I think it's really an ignorant statement, especially being from Detroit. You can't say things like that. So, for instance, I know people who've been shot. I've lost friends. I've lost cousins. And so it's like nobody can control me into saying that gun control is necessary, that gun violence is a bad thing. When you've seen, family members that are only 16 die of gun violence, nobody has to tell me that that's a bad thing. I know it's a bad thing. And so it's kind of stupid to just assume like, 18-year-olds don't know anything about making these kind of decisions. Like when you feel lost, you know that you're going to want to do something. And if that something is protesting, then that's on you and that's something inside of you. So if people want to spark action and want to do action, it's because they felt it. Something made them feel that way.
Alondra, Evie?
I agree with Imani, and I believe like that like growing up like in Detroit especially, and like living in the Black and brown community, like gun violence is something that we always seen, and like we've always seen it. And like just for people to say like, gun control is something like dumb to fight for, and it's like, well, our whole lives like we grew up with our communities just killing each other. So like, no, it's not a dumb thing. Like we want safety in our community, and knowing that like we can't even go to school because like the shootings are going into there, like of course we're going to stand up for something.
Yeah, I mean, I've had many parents say, I feel so awful for these kids because these adults are just pushing their liberal agenda on them. Personally, I find that incredibly insulting that these parents feel that as students, we don't have the courage and we don't have the voice to stand up and plan an event and do something. No one's controlling us. I mean, I don't know, like, we always fight with our parents, and for the most part, sometimes you win. And if parents were trying to control us on this event, we would fight back the same. And
Well, thank you all for coming here today, and best of luck tomorrow.
thank you.